An old gentleman of Zhongshan County by the name of An enjoyed working on his land. One autumn, when his buckwheat was ripe, he went to supervise the harvest, cutting it and laying it out in stacks along the sides of the fields. At that time, someone was stealing the crops in the neighboring village, so the old gentleman asked his men to load the cut buckwheat onto the cart that very night and push it to the threshing ground by the light of the moon. He himself stayed behind to keep watch over his remaining crops, lying in the open field with a spear at hand as he waited for them to return. He had just begun to doze off when he heard the sound of feet trampling on the buckwheat stalks, making a terrific crunching noise, and suspected that it might be the thief. But when he looked up, he saw a huge monster bearing down upon him, more than 10 feet tall with red hair and a big bushy beard. Leaping up in terror, he struck out at it with all his might, and the monster gave a great howl of pain and fled into the night. Afraid that it might reappear at any moment, An shouldered his spear and headed home, telling his laborers, when he met them on the road, what he had seen, and warning them not to proceed any further. They were reluctant to believe him. The next day, they were spreading out the buckwheat in the sun, when suddenly they heard a strange sound in the air. "It's the monster again!" cried old An in terror, and fled, as did all the others. A little later that day, they gathered together again, and An told them to arm themselves with bows and lie in wait. The following morning, sure enough, the monster returned a third time. They each shot several arrows at it, and it fled in fear. Then, for 2 or 3 days, it did not return. By now, all the threshed buckwheat was safely stored in the granary, but the stalks of straw still lay higgledy-piggledy on the threshing floor. Old An gave orders for the straw to be bound together and piled into a rick. Then he himself climbed up onto the rick, which was several feet high. He was treading it down firmly when suddenly he saw something in the distance. "The monster is coming again!" he cried aghast. Before his men could get to their bows, the creature had already jumped at him and knocked him back onto the rick. It took a bite out of his forehead and went away again. The men climbed up and saw that a whole chunk of the old man's forehead, a piece the size of a man's palm, had already been bitten off, bone and all. He had already lost consciousness, and they carried him home, where he died. The monster was never seen again. Nobody could even agree on what sort of creature it was.